I feel fairly certain that most of us have heard the saying, comparison is the thief of joy. But I'm here to warn you that there is another thief that has been out and about in the community and on the prowl. And the name of that thief is the fear of failure. And you know what the fear of failure is out here snatching up? Your dream. Now, there are levels to this fear of failure. And one level is the fear of being a beginner, of starting something new. Now, I know you have those things in your life that you are unbelievably accomplished at. Things that you could do with your eyes closed. Things that if somebody came up to you and said, "Can you do this for me?" without hesitation, you would jump in because you know that you are an expert at that. But will you make the same jump for something that you are a beginner at? That's the question. And that's what the fear of failure typically will go after. But y'all, we're going to reframe that thing. We're going to start looking at failure, and especially the failure of being a beginner, a little bit different. We're going to look back at all of those things that we have accomplished over our lives that required us at some point to start from the beginning. So, y'all, we're going to do a little reminiscing. We're going to remind ourselves of what we are capable of, and we are going to go and snatch those dreams back. Y'all, let's get into it. This is Looking for My Fit.
Looking for my feet, looking for my fit, yeah. Looking for my feet, looking for my fit, yeah. Looking for my feet, looking for my fit, yeah. Looking for my feet, looking for my fit, yeah.
Well, what's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Looking for My Fit podcast. My name is Jamaica, and on this podcast, I talk about all things surrounding my life. There is faith, family, fitness, friendships, you name it. I talk about it right here on the pod, especially if I think there's something I can share that can have a positive impact on others' lives. So if you are new to the podcast, hey, welcome. I'm so happy that you are here. I hope that you feel at home. I hope that you will want to stay and not miss any future episodes. And that by the end of this episode, you will go ahead and click subscribe and make your place in this crew official. And if you are an OG listener, y'all already know what's coming. I love you and I love you big. Thank you so much for continuing to tune in and to share and to support. It means the world to me. So thank you. All right, y'all. What I talked about at the beginning, fear of failure. And I do believe there are levels to it or categories. That would be a better word. There are categories to this fear of failure. And the category that we're going to focus on today is that fear of being a beginner, of doing something new. A few episodes ago, I talked about self-sabotage and like what is your preferred method of self-sabotage? How do you sabotage yourself? And mine was in taking courses and feeling like I need to take just one more course. I need to be a part of just one more program in order for me to be able to move forward with this idea that I have, right? Let me get a quick caveat. If you only watch this on YouTube, you're probably going, what episode was that? I have not posted all of the episodes on here. I have been true to my word since January. There has been a new episode every week. However, all the episodes don't make it to YouTube 'cause I just have not been presentable, honey. There are days where I'm like, Lord, I cannot be on the camera. I'm going to do better with that, but I want to say, if ever I speak of an episode and you're like, I didn't see that, then you just need to head on to your favorite podcast platform and listen in. Okay. Well, on that episode about self sabotage, I said that I need to do a better job of creating content for this podcast. It is my desire to have this podcast to grow as big as it possibly can and to reach as many people as it possibly can. Right now, the growth of the podcast is solely based off of you, the listener. So I love you so much. Y'all are sharing. I don't do a great job of sharing. I don't do a great job of like promoting it and creating content for it. And I had to ask myself, like, girl, like, what is this thing that is holding you back? Why are you not doing it? And I realized it's just about me being a beginner. I am not a content creator yet. Okay. I feel like sometimes you watch other people, there goes a comparison, thief of joy, and they look like they just have this rhythm and they got it all together. And I had to remind myself that the very people that I watch who are pumping out this content and do it consistently, and you can tell that they are just in a space where they're free. They're not worried about what you're thinking. They're not worried about how it will do. They just put this content out like it's a regular thing. The fact is, at some point, they had to start from the beginning. There had to be a starting point to get there. And the only way you can get better at anything is to be willing to first start the thing. And then once you start the thing, you have to be willing to continue to show up, to continue to grow, to continue to learn and to apply and evolve over time. The only way you can learn new things, figure out what works, what doesn't work, the best practices is to show up. And at some point within that, there is a good opportunity that you are going to fail. The good news is your biggest lessons and the ones you tend to hold on to forever are the lessons you get from when things don't work out. Because guess what? You don't want that feeling anymore. How do I avoid that? That's the question. I don't want to do that anymore. So those things stick with you, and those are the things that will help you to grow. Yeah, I had to have a talk with myself, and I had to seriously sit down and look back at all the things that I have done throughout my lifetime and the fact that I was willing to show up as a beginner for all of those things. So, what I'm gonna do real quick, I'm gonna run back some of those situations for myself when I started back as a beginner. And as I'm going through these, I want you to start making note of the things that you are now really great at that at one point you were not. At one point, you didn't have a clue what you were doing. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and take us on back to 2003, which was my first year of teaching. Lord have mercy on both me and the children. What a time. What a time. Now, here's the deal. In 2003, Carlos and I got married. And at the time when we got engaged, Carlos went ahead and moved to Charlotte. He found a job very quickly. He got hired as a teacher. He also taught English. We both were English teachers. He came down, he got a job, boom, he was in the system. When I moved down here, getting a job was a lot harder. Now, the process was a lot different at the time. Now we have so much uh, digital help that you didn't have at the time. So there was a lot of people still sifting and looking through applications, and there was a lot of paper that was still involved. Well, in the meantime, in between time, while I was looking for waiting to get called for an interview for a teaching position, I was like, well, I still should probably work. We just got married. I feel like it would be good for us if I'm also bringing some type of income to the table because we cannot live off of these wedding gifts forever. So, in the meantime, in between time, I went downtown. I got a job working at the education center for the school system. So I was in the school system, I just wasn't teaching, which then once I got to know people, I was working there and I built relationships with people. As jobs started coming open, the people who were responsible for sending candidates to the schools knew I was looking. So they would let me know and they would put my name in so that I could go and get an interview. When I finally got a job, so again, Carlos and I get married in June. The school year starts in August. I get a call to come in and take a job in December, which meant I was not the first teacher in that classroom. As a matter of fact, I went in for the interview. I got hired. I was so excited. I go into this class, and not only am I not the first, I'm also not the second. I am the third teacher that they have had in this classroom. I remember very vividly finding a note that some kids had been passing between each other, and they said they had the names of the two other teachers, and then they had my name. They had the other two crossed out, and they said, two down, another to go. And when I read that, I said, I will help you. I will scratch out my own name. This teaching is hard. I'm sick of y'all. I'm sick of this, and I will find something else. Y'all, I started studying zip codes. 'Cause I was like, I will go work at the post office. I will get out here on this mail truck and deliver some mail, honey. Cause what I'm not gonna do is keep coming in here and fooling with y'all. I would get home in the afternoon. I would be exhausted. I would take a nap. I would get up and eat dinner, but y'all going to bed wasn't even enjoyable because all I could think about was the fact that I had to go back into that classroom the next day. Y'all, teaching is tough. And one thing that they don't teach you when you're becoming a teacher is anything about like classroom management. It's just one of those things that you got to figure out as you go along. I had it, and it was taking a mental toll on me to show up to that school every day. Well, the Lord didn't bless me to get on with the post office. Or any other job, but please know I was trying. I was trying and applying. Anything but this. Get me out of here, Lord. I made it through to the end of that first year. And when I made it to the end of that year, thank you, Jesus. Also, I'm going to continue to look for other jobs. However, y'all, as I got through the summer, I felt rested. I realized like I have survived this first year. I started thinking back on the fact that I had learned a lot in that year. One of the things I kept in mind was I was not the first teacher. I was the third. So I was walking into a group of middle school students. And y'all, if you've ever had children in middle school, so I have two middle schoolers now. They are 11 when they get there. So we start sixth grade, you're 11. You go up through seventh grade. So by the time you get out, eighth grade, you're what, 14. So it's quite an interesting year. They need structure. Okay. And so I walked into a situation where there had not been a lot of structure, there had not been any consistency. Two of the main things middle school students need are structure and consistency, because without that, they dominate. They will take over your classroom. So I had to keep in mind that I walked into a situation that wasn't set up to end up being anything great. And it was my first year. So, like, I did not know what I was doing. So as the school year started to approach, I started feeling rested, and I had been reflecting on why things were so rough. And two, now that I would get an opportunity to start the school year from the beginning, I had an opportunity to do things differently. But let me tell you what I did during that first year, in addition to looking for other jobs. During my planning period, I went to the classrooms of other teachers in different grade levels who were seasoned, and specifically English teachers. I went and sat in their classrooms, and y'all, I sat in amazement. I'm like, how are you getting these kids to not only sit down and not talk, but to do their work? Like, what is this? What is this? What is this magic that you are working in here? And I remember talking to one teacher, and she was definitely like a veteran. And she gave me the secret. She said, if you can build rapport with these kids, but before you build it, you have to come in here. You got to, she basically said her version of 10 toes down. You got to stand on business. They have to know that you are the manager of this classroom. And once you establish that, you then start to build rapport. But let's establish first, you are the head of this classroom. You are the one who is managing things, not them. Once you've got that down, you start building rapport, and you'll know when it's time. She said, but the great news is once you have mastered classroom management, you can teach anything. And y'all, she was right. But guess what? I had to do some things in between. So I went into different teachers' classrooms. I watched the different strategies that they use, everything from what they did when the students came in, how did they set up their warm up? How did they transition from warm up into the lesson? How did they transition from their portion of what they're teaching into letting the students work individually, or how are they working collaboratively? I watched all the things and took notes on all the strategies. And then I said, now, how do I do this as a second year teacher coming in? And y'all, guess what? The second year, so much better. I remembered what it felt like to go home every day and dread coming to work. And I said, not again. Not another year. We're not going to do this another year. I focused on my classroom management. That was my primary focus. And then once I had the classroom management down, I started trying different strategies for different lessons. I also kept myself open to learning from those around me. I didn't have an ego. I didn't want to pretend like I knew what I was doing, because I didn't. So in order for me to know what I was doing, I had to learn from someone. So when other teachers would come in, they would share their ideas and the lesson plans and the things that they plan on doing. I would see if I could incorporate some of those things. And some of the things will work and some of them wouldn't, because teachers have different personalities. But along the way, I found my style as a teacher. And guess what? That third year, y'all, that third year of teaching, I was top notch. I call that the golden year. I hated the first year. I built my confidence the second year. In the third year, I pulled it all together. And up until this day, that is still my favorite year of teaching. And during that third year of teaching, I was so happy that I didn't quit. I was like, what if you had quit? You would not be enjoying this. Y'all, I had management. I was able to have rapport, which then opened me up to being able to do so many fun things with my students. And discipline became a very secondary thing. It almost handled itself because I was able to rebuild rapport with those kids. They didn't want to do anything to that would cause them to miss out on what might happen in the classroom. It was amazing. And I was so happy that I had done that and that I had stayed and that I hadn't quit. But y'all, that first year, it was terrible. It was absolutely terrible. But I stayed the course and I was willing to keep learning. And y'all, not only did I do that, I went on to have a really great career within education. I went back I got into a cohort where my master's degree was paid for. I went back and got my master's degree in curriculum and supervision, which then gave me a new certification as a K-12 curriculum specialist, which opened up opportunities for me to then work outside of the classroom as an academic facilitator, which is a fancy way of saying like an assistant principal of instruction that allowed me to help other teachers and to provide professional development sessions, not just to English teachers, but to the entire school. I also worked on creating curriculum for the district over the summer. Y'all, the one I was I was studying zip codes. I was studying zip codes, y'all. That first year was so rough. I wanted out. Now, I'll be honest. Part of why I didn't do it is because the Lord didn't bless me to get the opportunity. But I stayed in there. And the woman who was coming home crying almost every day, who wanted out by any means necessary, I would take any job. Somebody call me, ended up getting her master's degree in education, coming out of the classroom, becoming an academic facilitator who was presenting professional development session to other educators across all content areas and who was writing curriculum for the district over the summer. I did not start in that space. I started as a new teacher who didn't have a clue what she was doing. But look what I was able to accomplish. Same thing as a trainer. I was still in education at the time when I fell in love with fitness and made the decision that I was just going to go back and get my certification in as a personal trainer. And my thought was, I'm going to be a substitute. I'll learn the ropes. When people need somebody to fill in, I will hop in, I will do that. Well, I ended up becoming the head trainer of a fitness facility for a boutique fitness franchise. And that ended up going very well. But let me tell you, oh, there was a learning curve. Now, I will say that because I had already been a member at this particular franchise, I knew a lot of stuff, which was hard for people. A lot of times when you work for boutique fitness, there's just a way that things go. And even if you may have experience, you still need to learn like how they do it. So because I had been a member, I did have like a leg up with that. I knew the jargon, I knew the formatting of the workouts and how everything needed to flow. What I didn't have was the experience on the microphone putting all of that into practice. Now, look at this. Because I was willing to be a beginner as a teacher, when it came time for me to train, I was comfortable speaking in front of people, right? It's because I was teaching. So this was like another form of teaching, but just in a different capacity, right? Well, when I ended up getting the position as like the head trainer for a new facility that was opening, I had to go through this week-long training where you go with a seasoned trainer and you're learning from them all week. So it's like a week of professional development. Okay. I tell this story all the time, but it's about the willingness to grow. So first of all, let's back up. When I knew that I was going to take the position and eventually leave the school system, I was like, I had learned from my time teaching. And I was like, I'm a beginner. Like, yeah, do I know how to teach? Yes. Do I know some of the things? Yes. But I'm still a rookie. So what I did was I took the time, I reached out to another trainer and asked, could I start shadowing them? He said yes. And at least 3 days a week, when I would get off from my job at work, I would change my clothes. I would drive to this location and I would stay and help to work all of the afternoon sessions and would get on the floor with them, learn from them, take notes, ask questions. I would do all of that stuff, right? So I was still putting in the work because, and you know why I did that? Because of the time that I had been teaching. And I remember like, well, this is how I learned with that. So maybe I'll go and do this. Well, when it came time for me to go to my week-long professional development, I hopped on the mic. I trained that first session and I came off the floor and you cannot tell me I had not killed it. Okay. When I got off, she asked me, like, how did you think you did? And I was like, oh, I think I did pretty good. Well, she had these tally marks that were all over this paper. And I said, well, what are those? Like, I thought, every time I did something correct, she was making a tally mark. She said, every time you said good, I made a tally mark. She said, you were out here. Good, 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 good job. Good, good, good. I said, oh, Lord have mercy. I'm too embarrassed. I thought these were tally marks of triumph. They were tally marks of what I needed to work on. Okay. I did not take it personal. Was I embarrassed? Yes, I was. However, I used that to make a correction. So the next time I got on the microphone to train, I'm gonna tell you, I almost choked because I had to like swallow the goods. But when you were aware of that, that is when you make the change. So in every time I had to stop myself from saying I was swallowing the good, I was like, man, she is right. I say that a lot. It was a default because I wasn't quite sure how to like fill the air while I was training. But guess what? Even though that was embarrassing because that was feedback that we got in a circle to all the people, I use that as an opportunity. Why are you continuing to say good? You're saying it because it is a way for you to fill the air. So now, what can you do in place of that? You don't walk around your classroom saying good, good, good. What did you do? You were intentional about how you were talking. So then, instead of just randomly scanning the room and saying good, I started actually looking at the people who were working out, and I would say, "Oh, she's lifting a weight that seems to be a little bit too light for her. Let me go and get some heavier weights, or let me give a cue from afar. Oh, that form is not great. Don't want that person to get hurt. So now I can go over and work with this person, or I can give a cue to this person from afar of what they need to do." So instead of me trying to make up things to say, I became intentional with what I was saying so that I didn't have to keep saying good, good, good. I didn't have time to say it because I was being authentic in the things that I was saying on the microphone. Fast forward a couple years, I went from being someone who was new to the fitness game, who was out here on the floor learning from others, who went to this professional development session and got tally marked for saying good 1,000 times, to becoming one of what they call master trainers, who then had people come to me to do the same exact thing that that trainer had did for me. So during that week-long professional development time for trainers, some of those trainers who came into town came to the location where I was training, and I had the opportunity to do the same thing. I became the person who was demonstrating what we needed to do, putting them on the floor, writing notes, giving feedback, helping them to in turn get better so that they would be ready to be the head trainer for their location. The person who was out here on the floor going good, 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 then became someone who was teaching others. But y'all, I did not start that way. I didn't start there. There was a process to get there. And every time I learned something more, I became a better trainer. And the fact of the matter is, there will always, if you're open to it and you put your ego to the side, there's always something else for you to learn. Now that I'm working for a different fitness franchise, I've been able to see different coaches and different styles. I've learned even more. If I had to get on the microphone now, my style would be different because I've continued to learn and pick up little pieces and be like, oh my gosh, that is so good. So if you leave yourself open to that, the possibilities are endless, right? I'm gonna give one more example. And this is not about me. This is about my oldest child, Jordan. Jordan, if you follow me for any amount of time, you know she played competitive volleyball. Jordan's very good. Jordan did not start that way. Jordan had grown up when she was smaller. She played basketball. She played softball. She was really good. She has like the natural athleticism. All of them actually, very athletic. So she played those two sports. However, during 2020, like during the pandemic when everything shut down, and then they finally started like you could go back to school for certain things. Initially, they didn't open the school up completely, but they did allow sports to happen. Jordan had been so tired of sitting around, she said, "Child, I'm about to go play me some volleyball." Had never played volleyball probably outside of PE in her life. But she decided she was going to go out there. Now, based solely off of her natural athleticism, the coach decided to put her on the team. Oh, I think she would laugh with me too. But honey child, when I tell you, my baby struggled. We have some old videos that we look back, and when I tell you we laugh to the point that we cry, my baby didn't have a clue what she was doing out there, okay? She did not know, but she was willing to step out there and be a beginner. There would be times when she was in the game, and if you've watched volleyball, if it ever comes on TV again, it's like collegiate, watch it. There's a method to how they move on the court, okay? And they have these rotations, and so there's a whole method to it. My baby didn't know. She did not know. So there would be times where her teammates would have to tell her where she needed to go and like what area was hers and what she needed to be doing. We made it through that first season, y'all. We made it. And at the end of that, Jordan said, I really liked that. Like I wasn't great, but I enjoyed it. And I would like to get better. So she asked us if we would sign her up for some volleyball camps and clinics. So we did. And as a result, she got a lot better. So good that she decided to try out for a club team. So that's like the competitive team. So with volleyball, there's levels to it. High school is cool, but club, that travel over the summer, that's where the real deal of competition comes out. So she went and she worked out over the summer. She came back. She was so much better. And she ended up playing club volleyball after that season. It was during that season that she started getting even more better. Well, the club season was cool and she did get better, but at the end of it, she was still kind of disappointed. But along the way, you start to see at these tournaments that you go to different teams. And we have seen some other teams within the Charlotte community who were like really good. And there was one team in particular that she was like, I would really like to be able to play for that club. And I remember at the end of her first club season, she said, can you go ahead? We were leaving the tournament. And before we had even left out the city, the last tournament was in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. She goes, can you go ahead and sign me up for some clinics for the summer? And I was like, yeah, we can do it. And she wanted to take the clinic at this club this new club that she wanted to be a part of the next year. So we found the clinic times, we signed her up, we got her in there. Jordan worked her butt off all summer. She was open to criticism and critiques and feedback so that she could get better. And she showed up all summer for this club. Well, at that time, when she was getting ready to trial for the new club, we had moved out of Charlotte and down to South Carolina. So we basically put in a bad spot because we said, "Now look, we cannot travel back up in the like it's just not feasible for us from down here to try to get off work, fight traffic, and drive all the way up to this north side of Charlotte for you to practice volleyball." So like I know you wanted to play for this club before, but now if you want to play, you will have to play for them because that's a place that we can get you to. Because at the time she didn't have her driver's license. Jordan, on tryout day, when I went to go drop her off, the line for the girls who were trying out was coming out the door and all the way down the sidewalk. There were probably 300 girls who showed up to try out for the club teams. I was just in amazement at how many people were out there. This was like next level. Well, at the end of the tryout, I go back to pick her up. She gets in the car and I say, how'd it go? And she's like, Mom, it's a lot of people in there and they're really good. And I was like, well, how do you think you did? And she said, I think I did pretty good. And then she looks at me and she said, I got invited to be on the team. So sorry, you might can't hear that on this microphone. So she was just like, let's go. I got on there. So what happened is the tryouts go over a certain number of days. But as the coaches are watching you and they're building their teams, they have the option to, instead of making you wait to the end, they can go ahead and pull you to the side and offer you a spot on the team. And Jordan got an offer on the first day with 300 people out there. She was one of the first ones to get picked. Y'all, when I tell you my baby started and did not have, I can't say it without laughing. Jordan did not have a clue what she was doing as a ninth grader. And she ended up making this club volleyball team. And y'all, my memories with her in volleyball will always be some of my favorites. She went from not knowing what she was doing to us traveling across all these different states. We have been to tournaments in South Carolina, different parts of North Carolina, Florida, Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky. Y'all, we have been so many places traveling with volleyball, playing high level competition. And I'm talking about balling. These are some of my favorite memories, just the level of intensity and the competition and just the whole vibe of it. And not only did she make this team and they go, y'all, they won a tournament. I'm talking about ballers. But guess what? She had to be willing to be a beginner for us to get to the space where she could play at that high level of competition, playing against other players from across the country. She did not start out that way, but she ended up not only making the team, but like starting. on a high level competitive club team. It was the willingness to be a beginner. Same thing with Peyton in gymnastics. First year, she was so disappointed because she wasn't winning anything at the gymnastics meets. And I said, baby, this is you just getting started. You just learning the basics. And Peyton kept working over the summer. And we ended up going to a new gymnastics club because we moved. And she took that drive and everything she had learned from the first year. And Peyton dominated the next year. Gold, 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 overall, gold. But she did not start that way. When Peyton first started gymnastics, I almost had to tell the girl, I can't take you no more because half the time she didn't even want to go out there on the floor. And so she went from this child who was like nervous and introverted and not wanting to go on the floor to becoming a gymnast, did very well. So, y'all, I say that to say this. I know that the fear of failure is real. And I know that the fear of failure can be even stronger when you're starting out with something new and you don't have the experience and you are looking at others who do have experience and you're comparing their years of doing something to your 0 years of doing anything. But here's what I know. If you want something bad enough, and it is truly something that you are passionate about and that you are willing to work through, you're willing to be a beginner, you're willing to fail and to learn from the failures and to keep building on what you're learning, that eventually the very thing that you were scared to do will become the thing that you are now an expert in. But in order for you to get to the point where you are an expert, you have to be willing to be the novice. You have to be willing to be a beginner and to keep growing to get to the expert status. It is wild to me to think about how I wanted to quit teaching, but ended up doing professional development across content areas and helping with the district. It is wild to think that I was saying good, 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 good when I first started training and then got the opportunity to mentor other trainers. But all of that came down to me being willing to start. Even with this podcast, if you go back and listen to the very early stages of this podcast, the audio was terrible. I did not have the looking for my fit. I didn't have that. I was recording stuff on my cell phone and I had some super cheap, I don't even know where that microphone, how I picked that microphone out of all the microphones. I don't even think it was working. If you listen to the podcast, I think I had it there for show, but it wasn't picking up audio. The audio is not great. I keep those episodes up there though, because that is a reminder of how far I have come. So as I'm sitting here and talking to myself and saying, being nervous about being a beginner and learning to create content, I can just even look at the podcast and where I started and how I started in the audio and the intros and those things and being like, oh, the quality of that did not sound very well. But now I'm on another level and I learned so much stuff. I think this is episode 92. 92 episodes in, I am not the person I was at episode number 1. I have learned a lot. And so if you go back through and you listen, you'll hear the difference in the evolution of the podcast from episode 1 to episode 92. But I had to be willing to start at episode number 1 and to keep showing up and getting better and learning more through all those episodes. And now we're at almost 100 episodes. So if you have been putting something off because you don't feel like you're an expert and you don't know what you're doing, so what? So what? Be willing to try and learn and fail. And I'm going to leave you with this lesson. And then we're going to go on out of here and we're going to go forth and be great. Just about every day of the week, I come home and the way that I relax is by watching Shark Tank. I love that show. I watch the old episodes. It does not matter. There have been so many seasons. So I'm all the way completely caught up on the new. I go deep back and I'll just watch all the old ones. And then as I'm watching these old episodes, I'm looking up the product to see if the company is still around, see how they're doing. Well, I had a nice little lesson the other day. I caught an episode from 2018, and there was a couple on there who had created this beverage in their homes, and they called it Mother Beverage. And basically, they were looking for a healthier alternative to drinking soda. So they wanted to be able to drink something that had like the carbonation and had good flavor, but didn't have all the other stuff that you typically find in soda. So they come on, they pitch it. It's in these like glass bottles, and some of the bottles are different colors depending on what the flavor is, but the packaging itself pretty much look the same. So they talk about how they created this product and how they had started selling it at farmers market. So they started at home, then they eventually got to selling it at farmers markets. And I don't remember like the next level it went to, but anyway, it's called Mother Beverage. Well, one of the sharks, I think his name is Rohan, he liked where he saw things were going, and he invested 400,000, which usually when people come in and ask for that much money, they're like, "No, thank you." 400,000, and I can't remember the percentage. Anyway, I end up watching another episode before I had looked this up. And on that episode, they started talking about, let's look back to see how this company is doing. And they go back to Mother Beverage. Well, when that episode aired, they said that the day that it aired, they ended up selling out of like all of their product. But then they also had all of these companies and stores reaching out saying, we want to distribute your product. We would like to carry your product in the store. Well, the problem was they could no longer use the name that they had, Mother Beverage. I think that's what it was called. They couldn't do it. So what they did was they rebranded this. They were like, well, you know what? We're going to give it a new name. We're going to do a completely different rebrand for this when we bring it back out. So get this. Let me back up a little bit. When all of these other stores started reaching out after the Shark Tank episode saying, we want to carry your product, they had to turn them down because they couldn't put the product out with that name. So that's why they had to go back to the drawing board. When they rebranded this, they made it look totally different. They went from having this glass jar to having cans that are all of these different vibrant colors that immediately catch your attention. And they renamed the beverage from Mother Beverage to Poppy. And I know at some point you have had to hear or have seen Poppy on the shelves. Y'all, when I looked this up, this was just the other day because this is recent. Just 3 days ago, Pepsi bought Poppy for $1.7 billion. Yes, billion with a B. This beverage that they made in their house, that they were willing to then take out and sell at farmers market, and then take a chance on coming into the Shark Tank, standing behind their product and building it. These are not people who had like experience in doing this. This is something that they just came up with and decided that they liked it and they believed that it could become something. Got rebranded as Poppy, and they just sold it for $1.7 billion. Y'all, if that doesn't motivate you, I don't know what will. And it's not even necessarily about the money. I mean, a little bit. I would take 1.7 billion happily. It's just about the willingness to start. Y'all, what if they had never taken the time? What if they just kept it to themselves at their house and they never thought, well, let's take this out to the farmers market and see how people respond to it and see if people like it. If they had taken this great thing and kept it to themselves, we wouldn't have Poppy, and then they wouldn't have this beautiful success story that they had. They were willing to be beginners and to learn and grow as they went along. And their willingness to do that ended up in a $1.7 billion payday. And I need you to hear me. It's 2025. Their episode aired in 2018. So it wasn't even that long ago. Y'all, we have to get out of our own way. We have to push the fear of failure to the side. We have to be willing to be beginners and to go through the growing pains to become the experts. But I would like to say to you, and I would also like to say to myself, don't get in your own way. Give yourself the opportunity to go all out and to chase whatever that thing is that has been sitting on you. Don't keep it to yourself at home. Put it out in the world. Be willing to fail and to learn as you go along. Y'all, we can do this. It's all there. Everything that you need is there. And guess what? The things that you feel like you don't have, you'll learn them along the way, but you won't know unless you try. So this week, I want you to go forth. I want you to be willing to be a beginner, be hungry to learn, and reframe failure as an opportunity for you to get better on your way from being a beginner to being an expert. I believe in you, and I'm excited to see what you end up doing. All right, guys, until next week, see you soon. Listen, I can't have you all missing out on episodes. I appreciate you all being here, and I want you to stay here. So before you leave, go ahead, click that subscribe button so you'll be the first to know when the next episode drops. I'll see y'all then. Looking for my fit is what